Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the new news. My name is Paul, and I'm going to be your host for the day. So, of course, we have a ton of stuff going on in the world today. Not a whole lot in North or South America, but a lot of stuff, especially in Europe and the Middle East. But with that, there is a lot of crises going on right now. So make sure you check out the description below and check out the different types of donation links that we have. We have a bunch for both the war effort and the humanitarian effort in and around Ukraine, as well as for stuff for both Ethiopia and Somalia there on the Horn of Africa. Both are suffering from severe droughts, and of course, a lot of places such as the Tigray region in Ethiopia survive off of humanitarian aid, a lot of which was rerouted to assist with the crisis ongoing with Ukraine. And so, especially in that Horn of Africa, children under the age of 5 are going to be especially be the affected individuals there, just due to malnutrition. And same thing, similar situation over in Indonesia. They ended up getting hit by Super Typhoon Rai over there, like Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam. And so they are currently recovering from that. If there is some more background noise tonight, I apologize. There is some severe thunderstorms that are coming through tonight. Same thing with if I begin to have some internet issues. So just as a heads up with that, there may be a little bit extra background noises as that's kind of coming through and may be impacting on the mic performance tonight. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and roll into what's going on in the country of Ukraine. And the first thing we have is actually over here in Lviv, and that's because U.S. actress Angelina Jolie was actually in Lviv today. She met a bunch of people there at the train station, and the reason why she's coming in is because she's a UN Goodwill ambassador, and she's currently coming into Ukraine in order to help and assist organizing humanitarian aid going in and out of the country. Whether that's refugees leaving the country to go to other places such as Poland, Germany, Slovakia, Romania, or if that's getting humanitarian aid into the country, food, water, portable shelters, medical supplies, you name it. So she had arrived there in the country today, and we have a video here. So as you can see, she is there in the country today. Now, getting more towards the war, however, the first thing we have is there in Kharkiv, and that's because another apartment building was destroyed today in Kharkiv, from our understanding. Kharkiv has been under continuous bombardment for the duration of this war, and that hasn't stopped. In fact, it's actually increased since this renewed offensive began. And so here in Kharkiv, we see they have essentially been under constant shelling and bombardment by Russian forces, even though those Russian forces, from our understanding, are getting pushed back by Ukrainian forces. The city itself is still well within range. So let's take a look here. And so we're probably, as rescue workers, are actually going to be able to get out and about, and those recovery efforts go underway once the war is over, or once Russian troops have been pushed out of this area. There's probably going to be a lot more images of things such as that coming out, especially as the war continues. So please keep that in mind. This isn't something new, however. We've seen this all throughout Ukraine. We saw it in Bucha and Hostomel. We've seen it in places even like Chernobyl, where it's highly radioactive to do anything there, and yet they still came through. They dug trenches. They blasted different locations there. In fact, they even hit the sarcophagus there that it contains the radiation inside the facility, which was just completed not more than a couple years ago. As we move further south towards Izium, there's some good news coming out today. Russia may have lost yet another general. And so we cannot confirm that this did occur, to be clear. But today, Ukraine is stating that they hit a command post near Izium and specifically killed Major General Andrei Simonov. What's different about this information that we haven't had before is the fact that they specifically named Major General Andrei Simonov, and on top of that, this is the Second Russian Army, is apparently what it's called, army group that they have hit. Take a look here. So let's take a look at this video. And so this comes as some of this artillery. I believe we actually showed this artillery yesterday, the shelling. And this is reportedly actually coming out of this area. We've now been able to locate specifically where this is going on. I stopped this yesterday and talked about saturation bombardment. But it looks like they did indeed hit. You can see it there in the center. What just took a direct hit is apparently a Russian mobile command center. Moving further south, we see here that Lyman is under bombardment today. Something was hit. It caused extremely large fire. Reportedly, it was the local cultural center that was actually ended up being hit. We don't know of any casualties or anything like that, but there is heavy bombardment along this entire front lines. So it's not surprising. We see it over here in Rubizhne, Severodonetsk. We see it, of course, up by Kharkiv, and along this entire. It's 500 kilometers, 300 total miles of a front line. So, and Russia is known, first they bombard an area with artillery, air power, everything they got. They saturate bombardment. They use saturation bombardments in these areas, and then they roll through with a heavy armored force, and then they put their tanks up front and they roll them through, essentially unsupported. And then they take the infantry and they come through, and the infantry mops up whatever is left. That is how the Russian doctrine does work. And so we can take a look at the. And so, as we can see there, of course, there are lots of flames and everything happening. They did hit reportedly hit the cultural center there in Liman, and then it basically started a large fire. Nothing out of Rubizhne, not enough information to say it's taken, not enough information to say that the Russians have been pushed back, so we are still listing that as contested territory. Severodonetsk, for a rather major city up here, still has not fallen from our understanding. And it's been really quiet along this entire line, except for the fact that Ukraine today is claiming that they shot down 2 Su-25s, 1 Orlan 10 drone, 8 tanks, and destroyed another additional 24 armored vehicles within the Luhansk region in the past 24 hours. And so this is specifically just in the Luhansk region. We can't verify any of this information, but we do have in-house translators to go through and let us know kind of what's going on. But that is what Ukraine is claiming. Once again, we can't independently verify. We do know that there's very wide disparities between what Ukraine is saying, what the Russian Federation is saying, and what independent sources, including the United States, is officially saying. Keep in mind, this isn't actually very uncommon, and this is something that I think can be a little bit of a misconception. If you took the battlefield casualties from the Iraq War, the battlefield damage assessments that the U.S. conducted during the Iraq War, field commanders reported killing the Iraqi army over 5 times. So this is, and I'm talking the entire Iraqi army would have been decimated 5 times over if we went by the battlefield reports alone. The thing to understand is that there is an information war currently going on between Western and Eastern countries right now over this war, specifically the Russian Federation and other Western countries. There is a narrative that all are trying to play, and I actually wrote something about this and put it onto our Discord if you're interested in reading more about it. It's about the dangers of misinformation and improper information. But Ukraine's wanting to report as many losses as they can because it shows that they're winning, supports their side. Russia is going to say the opposite. They're not going to release any information, and what they are is going to be in limited, well-timed, or to their possibility, well-timed releases of information, so that way it makes them look like they're not taking as many losses as they are, or even if they are taking heavy losses, the public doesn't know to the extent it is. So the true toll of this war will not be understood until it is over, and even then there are still question marks for places that may in turn still be occupied by Russian Federation. We don't know if that will be an outcome. It's very possible. Places that may become the Luhansk and Donetsk can still end up becoming independent independent countries if they so wished. Should there be enough support for it? I don't believe that is the outcome, but it is a possible one. We have to consider this. So with any casualty reports, take it with a grain of salt. Always take it with a grain of salt. Because no one can independently verify all of this, and we're not going to know until it's over. And it will take a long time even after that. However, as the front up here by Izium has stalled, it is reported that Russian forces are now pushing that southern front. This is much more suitable terrain for their tanks, for their armored vehicles, for their doctrine, that maneuver warfare doctrine that they use. And they're currently focusing on places like Heliopol, which is down here in the south. We know that there is part of the Azov regiment down here near Heliopol. We reported on it not too long ago, because the Azov battalion, there is one in Mariupol, but they're just one part of that force. There's other parts fighting in different areas, including here in Heliopol. We do not know to the extent that they have pushed or focused down here in the south, where they're pushing, where they're losing ground, because we know that Ukrainians are also conducting counteroffensives this entire duration. And that is what is actually expected up by Izium, is Ukraine pushing some counteroffensives in that area. Now that they've stalled the Russians, they're going to try and drive them back out. And that's a very possible capability. There's some talks about pushing that southern as in an attempt to not only secure the southern front, but also push towards Mariupol. There are some ongoing talks about where to emplace some of this new Western equipment and where it can best be utilized to its greatest potential. And the south is starting to look like very juicy territory for Ukrainian troops to really use those M777 batteries, for instance, those 155 millimeter artillery guns. This would be a very good location for them to use it, just because it's very open terrain, long distance, easy to spot, and these tank columns, they're not going to be able to hide in any woods or anything. They're going to be out in the open, and as well as any infantry supporting them. And now we get down towards Mariupol. And the first thing we're going to have to start with is, unfortunately, the fact that Maxar satellites spotted what appears to be yet another mass grave. And we do have that photo here. Now, reportedly, one of the issues regarding so we've heard about mobile crematoriums, for instance. There are reportedly about 13 mobile crematoriums are in the city. The issue is, according to the Ukrainian, city council and mayor of Mariupol, they brought those crematoriums in hoping to burn a lot of the dead. The number of dead has surpassed 20,000 people at this point, and that is coming from the mayor. But the issue is that in order to run those mobile crematoriums, they need a steady flow of gas, and Mariupol has been so destroyed, and the critical infrastructure to support the civilians there has been so totally destroyed that there is no flow of gas. There's no running water, there's no electricity, there's no gas lines working. They've all been blown up, shot up, you name it. And so now they have to resort to digging mass graves and once again putting large numbers of people into them. And when you're talking about 20,000 people, that is no small task. And this is once again yet another mass grave. We know there are others. We've seen others on Maxar satellite footage on both sides of the city, all around here. And so they just continue to pop up. There's also reports that Russian self-propelled guns are actually being moved towards one of these cemeteries as well. So there's different things coming out, none of which we can confirm on the ground, but the Maxar satellite footage is giving us a pretty good idea of what the Russians are trying to do. But good news is coming out of Mariupol, and this is what gives this video its name, and that's because the very first 20 people, 20 civilians were rescued and evacuated from Mariupol. They're currently on their way to Zaporizhia. Now, the ceasefire is supposed to start at 6 o'clock in the morning. It did not start until roughly 11, and this is according to the Azov battalion there and the Marines there. They had been shelled very heavily the night before, and they ended up blocking off a lot of passageways and collapsing rooms and passageways underneath the Azovstal, which has led to people being trapped in different places. According to them, they are currently working on trying to get those people out, but both sides are confirming that the United Nations has arrived and they have evacuated the first 20 of them. And this is not expected to be the last. So let's take a look here. This is directly from Mariupol here. You can see those UN vehicles there pulling up. Of course, Russian and DNR and LP or LNR troops there who have also been conducting this fighting. And then here is a message straight from the Azovstal itself. And we did get this independently translated as well, so we can confirm this. The subtitles are accurate.
Слава Україні! Доповідаю суспільству щодо процесу евакуації цивільних та поранених військовослужбовців з території заводу «Азовсталь». Цілу ніч по території заводу працювала ствольна ворожа артилерія, яка спричинила нові завали, нові руйнування. Режим тишини, який повинен був розпочатися в 6:00, розпочався лише в 11 годині. І так, це правда, станом на зараз обидві сторони дотримуються режиму тишини. З 6 ранку ми чекали на приїзд евакуаційної колони, яка приїхала лише 18:25. Станом на 19:40 ми передали в домовлене місце 20 цивільних, яких вдалося визволити з-під завалів. Це жінки та діти. І ми надіємося, що ті люди поїдуть в напрямку домовленому, а саме Запоріжжя, на підконтрольну Україні території. Станом на зараз проводиться далі спеціальна рятувальна операція силами військовослужбовців полку Азов, де ми з-під завалів тросами дістаємо цивільних людей. Це жінки, літні люди, це жінки та діти. І ми надіємося, що цей процес буде далі продовжено та нам вдасться евакуювати всіх цивільних. Щодо поранених, це люди, які потребують необхідної медичної допомоги, але нам невідомо, чому саме їх не забирають, та про них зовсім не йде мова щодо їхньої евакуації на підконтрольну Україні територію. Наголошую, що ми просимо прогарантувати виїзд не тільки цивільних, а також поранених наших військовослужбовцям, яким необхідна медична допомога.
So, once again, that is coming directly from the Azov battalion and the Marines that are still there in the Azovstal. And it sounds like there will be more evacuations. This is something that Antonio Gutierrez, who is the Secretary General of the UN, went to Putin himself and actually talked with him. But good news, nonetheless, that there is some kind of effort and some people have already made it out. As we move further back west here along the southern front, in Nova Kakhovka, the Lenin statue has returned. So, for those that don't know, Lenin was the leader of the Bolshevik Party. during the revolution in 1917. He died of a stroke. He had several in his lifetime. And then after him, Stalin took power, and Stalin carried them through World War II, the 50s, and then until his death. So he is really the founder of the Soviet Union. There are statues of him everywhere in Russia and in former Soviet countries as well. But the statue has returned to its pedestal in front of City Hall there in Nova Kakhovka under this Russian occupation that they're currently under. And the thing to take away here is those same people in Nova Kakhovka removed that statue of Lenin in 2014 after they kicked out their old Russian backing government. So we can see that here. There he is, being put right back in front of City Hall. Something else we've also seen in places like Enahadar and other Kherson and other places around the country is the fact that they are flying the old Soviet Union flag. They have been flying it. So if you're trying to not look like the bad guys, you're not doing a very good job, in my own opinion. As we move over to Kherson, this is something we also cannot verify, but it's very interesting. We have heard a lot from the Canadian volunteers lately, on Twitter, of course, and today they had something very interesting happen. And basically what ended up happening is they dressed as civilians, rode bicycles into Kherson. Into Kherson. And they basically infiltrated the city after riding bikes all the way from the Ukrainian lines. Just as civilians, they apparently met up with some of the resistance there in Kherson. And they conducted whatever. They did not list any of their objectives that they were completed. They did say that they did complete them, but they did not list any of those objectives. But they did describe the city. There are a lot of... So whatever Russian sympathizers are in Kherson, they are reporting people that are suspicious. They are in charge of creating their own new local government, and they've taken over the administration's buildings there. And we can see that here if we go onto his Twitter. And he has this whole long... It's very long to read through, and if you want to, it's Canadian Ukraine 1 without the E on the end of Ukraine. So very, very interesting, to say the least. If it's true, it could say a lot about how Russian forces are conducting themselves along this front line here. And he said that there's a lot of patrols and stuff, but very interesting that Ukrainian troops can actually infiltrate into Kherson just by riding their bikes and having a little bit of wits about them. As we move further over here into Odessa with our last point here in Ukraine, we can see a Ukrainian MiG-29 on patrol. And this is significant because yesterday, Slovakia announced that it would be giving Ukraine essentially its entire fleet of MiG-29s, which are badly needed. The Ukrainian Air Force has still been flying sorties this entire war, but we haven't seen a lot of them. And over Odessa today, here it is. We can see a Ukrainian MiG-29 on air patrol. Now, this is something that came out yesterday. We didn't add it here today, but we did find out who the Ghost of Kiev was. He was reportedly shot down and killed after engaging multiple enemy aircraft back in mid-March. So he was unfortunately killed. He was a 29-year-old major in the Ukrainian Air Force, but he's reportedly shot down dozens of Russian aircraft. But that did come out yesterday after the stream. We were reading through, and that was something we ended up finding. But for those that were wondering what happened to the Ghost of Kiev on the mention of the MiG-29, he was unfortunately shot down and was not able and did not survive. So with that, we have wrapped up everything inside of Ukraine, but there are some interesting developments outside of Ukraine. And we're going to start up here, actually, in St. Petersburg, Zamostim. Zamostim is a sculpture which was commissioned by the Russian government, from our understanding. And they basically took this sculpture, and it's the different logos of Western companies which pulled out of Russia following their invasion into Ukraine. And the word Zamostim basically translates to "we will replace you" or "you can be replaced." And this is something that ended up popping up yesterday. There it is yourself. I'm going to try and see which one. Zara, Adidas, McDonald's, Epson, Skoda. This is something Energies, IKEA, and Milky Way. All pulled out. This is just some of the companies that pulled out. However, Russian citizens who do not necessarily agree with the war and or the government are already destroying it. One good kick. That's all it took. This isn't the only thing interesting, though. If we go down here and down towards Moscow, Russian state media are talking about filtration camps. So this is something that we have heard about before, and I've even talked about it to some extent here on the channel. And filtration camps are pretty much a war crime. They're essentially, there's criminal courts due to things like the First and the Second Chechen Wars, in which people were systematically beaten, raped, tortured, and summarily executed. There were courts that did find people guilty of doing that back as far as 2000 and 2004. And this stuff occurred in the 90s. Now now a military expert in Russia, quote unquote. I don't know what his credentials are that make him that, but here's just Russian state media. We had an in-house translator also make sure this is correct, but let's just take a look and you'll see. Just bear in mind what I just told you what a filtration camp is.
Кто там держал в руках оружие, они должны пройти все законные барьеры фильтрации, допросов и так далее. Донецкая Фемида знает, как поступать с преступниками. Тем более, что для пленных в той же Донецкой области уже место приготовлено. Мне понравилась цифра, что может принять 100 тысяч военнопленных. Ну, нормально, нормально. Лишь бы они побыстрее выходили оттуда. Всех, кто там держал...
There is a filtration camp reportedly in Donetsk, which is down here. Mariupol is in Donetsk, in the Donetsk region, that can hold 100,000 people. And we have heard of people in Mariupol, unconfirmed, being whisked away to these filtration camps. 100,000 people. And these are known from the First and Second Chechen Wars, where the people have been convicted of war crimes by the International Court of Justice. Filtration camps are known to be places where people are systematically beaten, tortured, raped, and summarily executed. Essentially a concentration camp. So, and they're openly talking about this on Russian state media. I don't know why you would openly talk about this on Russian state media, but you also know that Russian state media is government controlled. So the topic had to be approved. There's no way that topic could not have been approved by the Russian government. And as we go all the way out here onto the eastern side of Russia, out here on this island, we can see that the Grez 2 coal-burning power plant is on fire. Apparently, a turbo generator caught fire in the plant. 30 workers did evacuate on their own, and there are no reports of injuries. But this is a pretty massive fire. So, not quite sure what the cause is. other than the fact that it's a coal-burning power plant, and I can imagine that is a hazardous thing. But yeah, there's not a whole lot that I can really add to that situation. And now, as we move down into the Middle East, there's a couple of different developments. We're actually going to start here in Egypt in the Sinai Peninsula, which is actually kind of Africa, but we're going to head and throw it in here. And that's because Egypt has raided these some Islamic State caches of equipment in the northern part of the Sinai Peninsula. They found IEDs, weapons, rockets, the whole works, and they also engaged and killed 5 Islamic State militants. And this stuff was used apparently for attacking government forces. We've seen them conduct attacks, not necessarily in the Sinai Peninsula, but up here by, say, like Israel and the Gaza Strip there. We have seen that. And speaking of the Gaza Strip, the leader of Hamas vows violence. So in a fiery speech tonight, the leader of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, which is Yahya Sinwar, said that the group would not hesitate to take steps against the Israeli police, or if the Israeli police raided the Al-Aqsa Mosque again. This has become a very controversial thing that Israel has done, in the way they've gone about it especially. And we know that there's already tensions between Palestinians and the Israelis, but he's threatening to target not just synagogues in Israel, but also synagogues worldwide. So this could have, he's calling it religious war at this point. So very, very open, very openly violent rhetoric, very openly aggressive rhetoric by the leader of Hamas there in the Gaza Strip. And as we jump up here to Mosul, the Islamic State ended up claiming responsibility for something that we aired yesterday, and that's that a car bomb exploded along the east bank of the Tigris River there in Mosul. It injured at least 5 Iraqi troops there, and they were allegedly targeting weapons and equipment stores in the city. And there is their notification regarding this. So they are officially taking responsibility for that attack. And as we move over into Afghanistan, power lines were destroyed in Salang, which is it kind of in those mountainous regions of Afghanistan. In fact, if I zoom in here, you can see this thing is completely covered in snow. It's the one place in Afghanistan I think it is covered in snow all the time. But the power lines there were destroyed, which cut off power to Kabul as well as 10 other districts and other parts of the country. The reason this is so important to target these power lines, and we've seen this before, is because Afghanistan doesn't have its own infrastructure to generate power, at least not a significant enough part of it. And they significantly rely on imports of energy from places from like Uzbekistan and Tajikistan to just have electricity for their country, to cover the electricity there in places such as Kabul. So this is something that we can suspect is the Islamic State who has done this. We've seen that before up by the border along Tajikistan, where they blew up another set of power lines. But we can take a look here with what's going on there. Yet another major line down. And it's even blocked a roadway. That's not very good. And as we move further south, the Islamic State also blew up yet another bus there in Kabul. We saw this happen 2 days ago in Mazir-i-Sharif. Today they are also destroyed yet another bus. They detonated a bus that had a bunch of people on board. They killed and injured at least 10 people. They're targeting Shiites specifically, the Shiite population within Afghanistan currently. That's why they've been targeting Shiite neighborhoods in places such as Mazir-i-Sharif. Why they've specifically, we believe also the individual that attacked the shrine there in Iran was also part of the Islamic State. There's a lot of information now to kind of say he may have been someone from the Islamic State. We've also seen them also conduct rocket mortar attacks on Shiite shrines in Iraq. So the reason why the Shiites specifically is because the Islamic State follows the Sunni sector of Islam. So that they are opposite groups essentially. The Islamic State follows more Sunni traditions, and they therefore target Shiite Muslims because they don't see them as true Muslims. And so we can take a look here with that. The bus there in the background destroyed. However, the casualties of the mosque explosion yesterday, this is at the Sufi mosque there in Kabul, no group has claimed responsibility for that attack. And currently, yesterday, it was up, I think, around 30 people that were injured. Today, people that are dead and injured from that actually has surpassed over 100 according to the locals. So the death toll continues to rise, but nobody, including the Islamic State, has even taken credit for that attack. So it's still up in the air who conducted this. However, the Islamic State was more than happy to say they did kill at least a member of the Taliban today and wounded 2 others, including a regional commander, in an IED attack on a Taliban convoy along the Pakistan-Afghan border. And this is over by the Pakistani city of Mahmud. And it's right over here. So more violence ongoing regarding this. We don't have any further information. This is just the Islamic State claims, and considering the amount of violence they're conducting currently, it seems to have at least some credibility to it. And finally, to wrap up, we're actually going to jump back over here into Israel, and specifically the Palestinian sector of the Gaza Strip. And that is because a farmer there in the Gaza Strip discovered a 4,500-year-old statue. So he was apparently plowing the fields, hit a giant bit of limestone, and after digging it out, it turned out to be a statue of the Canaanite goddess Anat. And so the goddess of love, beauty, and war in Canaanite mythology. So it's estimated to be from about 2500 BC, and it's near a former trade route that's currently in the Gaza Strip. So very interesting information. We can actually take a look here. That is the statue itself. So very, very cool information. This is something that they found yesterday. So, and of course, we got this from Live Science, who has not just stuff on the greater galaxy at large and the universe and the stars. They have stuff for all over. So it's very, very cool. I am very fascinated personally in archaeology and paleontology and mythology and stuff like that. I find it very, very interesting. I find this region especially being one of the Mesopotamia, which actually is right where about Baghdad is, because it is between the Euphrates and the Tigris, is one of the very first major civilizations in the world. This region has a huge amount of history, and it's absolutely fascinating, and I would like to go back and visit some of these historical sites if it was safe to do so. So very, very cool. I'm glad to see I'm glad to see something good coming out of Israel. There's been a lot of violence and everything the last few weeks. So very cool. Very cool. Hopefully we'll get some more good news. And with that, we've actually covered everything that we have today in the world. So a lot of bad stuff, some good stuff in there too. A lot of stuff that just can't be confirmed. We don't have enough information, and Russia probably isn't likely to confirm they've lost another general. And the Islamic State and the Taliban also confirm things very I would say it's very scheduled for them to confirm things. They release information at certain times. They plan that release. So, very interesting information. I would like to know more. I hope that more people are evacuated by the UN, and hopefully we get more information like that tomorrow. And with that, I hope you guys had a great night. I hope you've had a wonderful Saturday. And please check out the description below for, of course, those fundraisers. If you can't give a lot, give a little. And if you can't give anything at all, trust me, I understand. So just give this a like and subscribe. I don't want to beat out people like PewDiePie or something. What I care about is being able to grow this channel enough to do a lot of good for people all over the world. Not just Ukraine, but after Ukraine is over, I want to be able to help more people here down in Somalia, Ethiopia, places like Durban, South Africa, places like Indonesia, the Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam. The places that there are millions and millions of people in this world that need a lot of help. And if we can put something together here where we can give good news to you and accurate news, something that's not the usual political back and forth like you see in a lot of mainstream media, and we can do some good while doing it, I don't think of anything better I would want to do in this world is then put some good back into it. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you remain safe, that your family and friends remain safe as well. Enjoy your Sunday. And hopefully we'll have a bunch of good information for tomorrow. And so have a great night, guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye.